We are back. Giants baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and my co-host is Ian Kahanowitz. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Not as bad as the Giants are doing, because they got some trouble.
Well, not as bad as the Giants are doing, but last night, if you happen to have caught last night's game, it was very, very telling to me about what's going to happen in the future. First of all, I have to acknowledge that Buster Posey is really something else. I mean, notwithstanding his 3 world championships and his clutch hitting over the years and his comeback from that incredible injury, that disabling injury that basically turned his ankle around. Never thought he would catch again, thought maybe he'd be a DH somewhere. Comes back, has his footwork. He's just incredible. He picked the guy off second base to end the game. Now, they say you go to a ball game, you see something you never saw before. I don't know if there's anybody out there who ever saw a game where it ended by a catcher picking a guy off second to end the ball game. That's pretty cool. But here's what they did that makes what I'm saying. I think they're basically going to throw up a white flag. They were thinking of throwing up a white flag. Kane had an incredibly good outing last night, which might throw a monkey wrench into the white flag business, especially since they got some decent relief pitching. And they beat the Dodgers. It's always nice when the Giants beat the Dodgers. But my point is they called up, and I don't know if it's rushing them or not, but I think it is. And sometimes when you rush somebody, he steps up, and sometimes he doesn't. But Christian Arroyo, their number 1 hitting prospect, was called up. Took an 0 for last night, his first experience in Major League Ball. That's not going to affect the rest of his career one iota, good, bad, or indifferent. I think they're starting. The team has a lot of cracks, and injuries are happening, and this, that, and the other thing. So I think they may be preparing to break this guy in, see what happens. Can't go without Crawford too much longer, and we'll see. But it's always interesting times, and Ian, I wanted to put this on the air. I've been thinking about it for a long time. Bruce Bochy goes right to the Hall of Fame. Stops managing, whatever it is, 5 years, goes right to the Hall of Fame. Hey, enough's enough. This guy has been physically hurt. He's got a heart condition that periodically causes him to go in and get procedures and have this done and that done and stints, and he doesn't need the Surus. It's intense pressure being a manager, and that coupled with the fact that a manager, any manager, and I'm quoting Dusty Baker on this, loses effectiveness after X number of times. How many times do you go to the well for the Gipper story? That kind of thing. And I think they need to not fire him by any stretch. You don't fire a guy like that. You just give him a rest, whatever it is. You move him up. For his own sake, and really basically at this point, if rebuilding is in order, which it might be, then he's not the guy you want to rebuild with anyway. Now, I want to say, what say you to that, Ian?
Well, number one, Bruce Bochy, he's definitely going to get in. Remember his success with the Padres team in the late 90s. He took them to the World Series against a much more dominant Yankees team. But he got there. And, of course, you can't discount the Giants dynasty. For the last 7 years, every other year they're winning a championship. But, again, he's had physical ailments. He's had heart problems, and he's had to shuffle his lineup because of injuries. Now Baumgartner is out, and we're going to have to see how to. Yeah, it's stupid.
Well, let's just say with Baumgartner, he made a mistake. He's a young guy with a lot of money, and he's from Texas, so we're not talking about brain drain. But he went out and did something that he copped to. Contrast that with Jeff Kent, who had a similar type thing with a motorcycle and just denied, and was made to look a fool and showed his character. So you say one thing about Baumgartner, you say, he's a human being. Human beings make mistakes. That he copped to it, that he was upfront about it. He had a press conference and he talked. Genuinely contrite guy. Very, very sorry for what happened. Whereas opposed to Kent, who did, I didn't do it. That kind of stuff. Not the Texan, incidentally. Although moved to Texan, he went to Cal. He actually went to Cal Berkeley. Jeff Kent did. Anyway, there you go. They lost Baumgartner. So I look for. I hope he gets better. I hope Bochy's health continues to improve. But I'd like to see him put out of his misery from a humanistic standpoint. It's a tough grind being a major league manager.
Oh, it is. And, I think that, like anything, look at Casey Stengel. They started losing faith in Casey in 1957 when he lost to the Milwaukee Braves. And then in 58, he won with the Yankees. But they said, well, they had to take it as 7. And then in 60, he loses to the Pirates in 7 when the Yankees out-hit a great Pirates team. 56 to 19 runs, and they get rid of him. They say, oh, you're 70 years old. I always ask the question, would they have gotten rid of Casey Stengel? Even if he won the World Series because he was 70. No one knows how to answer that question.
No, they would not have and could not have. But his 1960 choices in the World Series, first of all, he didn't start Whitey Ford in the first game. He started Art Ditmar. So Whitey Ford would have been pitching that last game against the Pirates. He would have pitched the first game, fourth game, and last game. But Casey made another mistake on the bench in that 1960 World Series. It led to Tony Kubek being hit in the throat with a ground ball that erratically came up on a pebble, hit him in the throat. Well, guess what? Over the course of that season, more often than not, in the late innings, when he had the chance and the Yankees had a lead, he would put DeMaestri in to play short and move Kubek to left where Yogi Berra was playing, and improve the defense substantially at both positions. And it was one of those things that he customarily did to end most games, like I say, when he had the lead and DeMaestri was available and this, that, and the other thing. Well, for one reason or another, he did not do that, and he wouldn't have been playing in exactly the same spot, of course, and Demetriou was a better fielder. He should have done that, and that cost the World Series, basically. Would have he been fired if he won? I don't think they could have. I don't. And when you say they were looking to get rid of him, I don't think they were particularly looking to get rid of him in '57. They came back in '58 and won it. In '59, the White Sox beat both Cleveland and the Yankees out. But again, in '60, he came back, won a pennant. The whole thing was that Ralph Tyko, who was the manager in waiting one way or the other, had a firm offer. I don't remember if it was from the Red Sox or from Detroit, but he had a firm offer, and he was forcing the hand. He would have been gone, and he was the young guy that was the guy in waiting, and they made that decision. Casey had a great line at the press conference. He says, they fired me. They said I'm 70 years old. I won't make the mistake of being 70 again. Won't let that happen. So, but you and I, we were going to talk about another manager today. Are you still with me, Ian?
Oh, I'm with you. We're going to do some Leo the Lip. We're going to do Leo the Lip. And it's funny. Him and Casey, they had a fist fight back in the 1920s.
Really?
They were rivals on the field when, he was with the Giants and Leo was with the Yankees. And I think it was exhibition game that they did. But and then again, they met in '51. Leo the Lip is very important. He's important to Brooklyn Dodger history.
Let's talk specifically the Giants history. Yep. And I'll tell you how, fans today, they think the San Francisco Giants is a separate franchise. It's not. It's the same franchise. But I'll tell you a little anecdote about how the two franchises come together in history and how Leo's involved. In 1954, Leo takes the Giants to the World Series. In 1962, Alvin Dark, who played shortstop for Leo, is the manager. Wes Westrom, his catcher, is the first base coach. Whitey Lockman, his first baseman, is the third base coach. Larry Jansen, his star pitcher, if not in 51, if not in 54, he was with them in 54. He was a real star in the World Series in 51. So and all those guys, I don't think Jansen ever managed, but Westrom managed himself. Lockman was a big league manager. Alvin Dark and countless other players that Leo managed went on or had play for him, went on to manage. Now, those four people were the manager and coaching staff of the 62 Giant World Series team that had Bobby Richardson catch a line drive by Willie McCovey, hit right at him. Not as hard a line drive as history leads us to believe. There's a lot of revisionist history. It was a line drive that should have been a base hit, could have been, would have been if was hit somewhere else other than directly to him. So my point is, Leo, you say good things about him, bad things about him. He won twice with the New York Giants. He messed it up with the Cubs, and I'm a Met fan, so that was good. In '69, he was a despicable human being. I mean, everything I've been read about him, he was vile, he was sexist, he was everything that, but he won baseball games, and I don't know. You had an interview with a fellow named Paul Dixon who wrote a book about him. Now, I've read two books. I read Ozinski wrote a book about Leo, and Leo wrote a book about Leo, but he doesn't even put himself in a particularly good light. Do you know of anything? Can you offer something other than his baseball acumen, his ability to manage, his ability to develop managers? Do you know anything personally can be said good about the late Leo Durocher?
You know, when I spoke to Paul Dixon, and you probably listened to the show,
Yes.
I asked him the question at the end. I said, "Well, let me ask you something. Did you like Leo?" And he said, "Absolutely not. But is he important to baseball history?" And he is. And I'll tell you why. There are different Leo Durochers as the coach. There's the Brooklyn Dodger one, there's the Giant one, and there's the Cub ones. Now, the Dodgers and the Cubs, he had the same managing style. Ferocious, demeaning. I think he single-handedly lost the '69 pennant race with the Mets because the Cubs had that locked up and the team was tired, and he just crucified Ferguson, Jenkins, Ernie Banks. Who the hell crucifies and then Ron
Oh,
Santo?
yeah, Ernie Banks, exactly. For no reason.
No reason.
He picked on Banks all through the Banks. Hey, let's play two. Nothing bothered Ernie Banks. He was as vapid as can be, and I say that in a respectful way. He didn't get involved. How could you? Everybody loved Ernie Banks. How could have he been that way? As an example, was there anything? I didn't read Paul Dixon's book. I certainly read Zansky's book years ago, and he was a juvenile delinquent. He just was a punk in every way, and but I'm always an optimist, and I'd like to remember something good about him.
And this is what we're going to discuss about Leo the Lip. When he came to the Giants in '48 during the summer over there, when Brooklyn and the Giants made that deal, Leo changed his style of managing. Monty Irvin, who died a few years ago, last year I think, had nothing but good things to say, saying he was like a father. Willie Mays, when Leo had to leave the Giants, was crying, saying, "I don't know what I'm going to do now." Willie Mays, probably the only six-tool player ever, because he loved Leo Durocher. Not only because, Leo had the thing for bringing African Americans in,
Leo sheltered and spoiled him for his entire life.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, ruined the experience of managing for Rigney, for sure. But he did bring him to the superstar that he was. I mean, there was doubts. He was like 0 for 30 or something like that when he came out. Not 0 for, but hit that first home run off of who? Was it Robin Roberts or Warren Spahn? That's your trivia question.
I think it was Robin Roberts.
Correct. Ian, what does he win, ladies and gentlemen? Lovely parting gifts. It was It was indeed Robin Roberts. Our next contestant from the grave is Leo Durocher. Leo, do you have anything nice to say? No, I can't even think of anything nice. I was a fucking asshole.
well, you know something? Even though he was an asshole, he still gained the popularity of celebrities like George Raft, who was his gambling cohort.
Oh, and to have the popularity of George Raft / actor / mobster. Oh, what a coveted thing to have. Or Frank, or any of them, you know, and that's.
Well, they did. They all did. He hung out with that Frank. He was on the Judy Garland show. He was all over TV. He was even a broadcaster for a year. Leo the Lip was a marketing machine. And although what he did on the field, and you know, he was a womanizer too. He was married 4 times. The good stuff happened during the Giants run. He beat a Cleveland Indians team that was superior to the Giants in '54. They won 111 games, and Durocher's like, look, we have a great ball club. He made that team believe in itself. He made that whole team, the 51 Giants, believe, even with all the spy stuff he's being accused of, which it was true. He admits it. There was a spyglass in center field. There was a button that would press. He'd said, but even
that was in 51, and
right.
Yes, indeed. They were doing that, and it was an elaborate system set up with a telescope and Herman Franks in the center field bleachers, passing on signals via a buzzer to the dugout, and Bobby Thompson. And I'm a Giant fan. There's a book called I can't think of the name of it, written by a fellow who is a Wall Street Journal journalist, and the book was Green Cathedrals, as a matter of fact, and it documents the fact that Giant players in '51, this was all set up by Leo. Ironically, it wasn't illegal technically to steal signs, but that comeback was engineered by them knowing what was coming. It ruined a lot when I read this book it's been out about 20 years now, maybe 15 years certainly. I read it about 10 years ago, and it ruined a lot of my boyhood illusion about that great shot heard around the world. Now, he had to hit the ball, did Bobby Thompson, even though he knew what pitch was coming, but he did, and speaks to Leo's character that he stole signs the last month of the season and into the playoffs. And it also says something that because of the World Series exposure, he wasn't doing that in the '51 World Series when the Yankees beat them in the '51 World Series. So
that's right.
But and somebody else, I think it was Al Worthington, who's a highly devoted Christian, born again or whatever the word is, and he couldn't stand to play for Leo. He forced a trade, if I'm not mistaken. He was a pitcher with the Giants, and because he knew what was going on. So anyway, but on the field, his success. He had a winning record with all 3 teams that he managed: the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Cubs. So, but it also says something. They wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame until he died. and he was put in. He was so hated by so many different people. He was reputed to having stolen Babe Ruth's watch, and there's also rumor that Babe Ruth beat the crap out of him for doing that. I don't know how true that is. A lot of it is hard to pin down. A lot of rumors. What did you learn from Paul Dixon's book that we're going to run the interview on your show later on in the week? But one thing that you learned that surprised you about Leo Durocher, Ian?
The biggest thing that I learned, and I learned a lot, I advise everyone to read Dixon's book because he does do a scholarly job of bringing Leo the Lip to life. But the one thing I learned that I did not know about, which shocked the hell out of me, was that Leo Durocher was all for management, indebted to management, when Marvin Miller was trying to destroy the reserve clause. When Miller came to visit the Cubs in 1972, because all the players were getting ready to do the first strike, which they did on April 1st. He came down to spring training. Leo Durocher tried to throw Marvin Miller out and only gave him 5 minutes of time and then ordered the team back onto the field. So Miller went back and he had to have another meeting with the Cubs because Leo was so rude to him. But Lee to the team and say, how dare you be so neglectful and do this to Mr. Wrigley, who pays your salaries. What's paradoxical about this, Ralph, is that Leo the Lip benefited the most when Miller fought for the increase in pension in 1968. Leo.
So he had a pension himself.
Yes, Leo's pension was hugely inflated because of Marvin Miller.
Hey.
And yet he argued against Marvin Miller. Shocking.
Did it shock Marvin Miller?
Well, Miller knew. He still had people, Miller knew.
I mean, yeah. Does Dixon make note of why he did that? Does he try to analyze what he was doing?
Yeah. I asked him on my show, and he's like, he still thought of the old ways where managers are indebted to the owners, and the owners, it's all like this collusion to keep the players on the payrolls and keep them in order. And it was almost like a Gestapo way of controlling the players, because he thought, Dixon, that if Leo saw people getting free agents, they would not try as hard because they were getting paid a lot of money.
Well, there could be something to be said for that. I was wondering the other day while on the air somewhere why players, I know why, but why players have their best years when it's off time. And why can't they be motivated, or why can't there be a different system of pay that just allows players to stay motivated all the time? And, you could build it in. But then again, they frown on incentive clauses as well. So, it's like management and the unions have come together to screw the paying fan out of the highest quality of ball that we could be watching. It's just like, we'll appease them, we'll give them as much as we can get, everybody will get rich, we'll cover up the P-tests for the most part. It just goes on and on. Anyway, I'm trying to stay positive today, too. That's the amazing part.
When you speak about Leo the Lip, when you speak about Leo the Lip, it's hard not to get the negativity thrown in there. But I will say this: You read the book. Leo is a very, very complex figure. I think he comes out on top. The biggest thing you have to know about Leo, he ruined a lot of relationships, and he destroyed the 69 Cubs. But otherwise, it's a really good read. I think everyone should read it, whoever's a fan of baseball history.
Thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. We got a little insight to Ian. And remember, again, don't let me get played lightly. He developed future managers, players that played for him. I don't have a complete list, but just starting with Alvin Dark, Giants manager of that team, and Whitey Lockman, Wes Westrom had managerial experience in the bigs. Incredible. So he was Herman Franks, the same guy with the telescope. He was another one who managed for the Giants, as a matter of fact. And as an offshoot, Herman Franks saved Willie Mays' financial career. Herman Franks was a real estate developer and an investor, and Willie was going down the tubes financially. And Herman brought him back to respectability. Thank you, sir. Giant fans, I hope you enjoyed it. An insight to the past, and we talked a little bit about the present. And as I mentioned, Christian Arroyo is the future. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they respond in the next few weeks. Matt Cain having a nice outing. Let's hope. He was the horse. And Giant fans, don't ever forget that you booed him when he was struggling. They booed him unmercifully after what he did for them. Fans are fickle. And I like A's fans better than Giants fans as a group. And I'll tell you why. Because Giants fans, because of this new stadium now, are more corporate. The tickets go to the corporate folks who either pass them on or don't really care themselves. It's a social outing. And the A's fan base in Northern California is strong, small but very strong, and they're going to be rewarded with a stadium that will be a gem, just like AT&T is a gem. So when I say I dislike the Giant fans, not the ones that are the old-time Giant fans that root, the ones that saw them come up, go down, come up, go down. They had a lot of struggles. They almost left San Francisco 3 times. Votes taken at the last minute, this, that, and the other thing. But Herseth coming in with Bob Lurie to save them. Bill White saved them from going to San Francisco. If I haven't told you that story that was told to me, Ian, we'll talk about it another time. But Giants almost moved to St. Pete and were thwarted by Bill White's hatred for the experiences he had with I guess we're not talking about it another time, with the powers that be when the Cardinals took spring training in St. Pete. But anyway, this is a pleasure, Ian. I love batting it around with you. This is fun. And next week we'll do Alvin Dark. Speaking of complicated human beings, was Alvin complicated or what?
No, he was complicated. But you know what? He found God in the end.
He found God in the end?
Yeah, he's still alive.
In his end, not in his end. Yeah. Right at the end. Yeah, and that's something. No, you talk about Alvin Dark. He found God, and he preached God.
Yep.
The early 50s, and he was the most hypocritical of humans to preach God and live a life where he was stooping the stewardess and the future wife. So he thought he found God back then. His definition of God was despicable. So, again, a complicated man with great managerial skills. Amazing the people we admire in life, Ian. You know?
All you have to do is read Jim Bouton's Ball Forward, and you get a lot of information on the people we worship, including Mickey Mantle.
Well, including Willie Mays. Alvin Dark is an example. I didn't mean Willie Mays. I meant Alvin Dark, who Jim Bouton talks about going as a kid, going to the polo grounds. I was a kid going to the polo grounds. He's a little older than me, and he'd go and ask Alvin Dark, Mr. Dark, may I have an autograph? And Alvin had his standard remark, take a hike, kid.
Yeah, that's sad. It really is.
It is absolutely sad. And yet there are some wonderful folks in baseball in all walks of life. There are a lot of twits. That's just happens to be. I like to pick out the ones that are the good guys and identify the bad ones for what they are. But we'll talk about Alvin, the good, the bad, and the ugly next week, and we'll keep up with what the Giants are doing and wish Christian Arroyo the very best, the newest of Giants and their number one hitting prospect is now a big leaguer. Kind of exciting. Do you remember what it was, Ian, when they called you up to the big leagues? Your reaction?
My reaction? If I was ever called to the big leagues, I questioned their...
okay. Well, I was going to say, neither was I. I'd like to we'll get Christian. We'll get Christian on, and we'll ask him if we can. I'll make an effort, and because that's got to be cool beans. I mean, you work all your life, literally all your life, because these athletes today are bred to play ball with the traveling teams, with this, that, and the other thing. The competition is fierce. You go through the minors. You can play on a team where 3 guys are going to make it to the big leagues. You know, every team you play on in the minors, only 3 of your 25 teammates will make it to the big leagues. And that's after making the minors, being drafted, being signed, and all. Chances are immense that you won't, and then you do, and the feeling. Those are the guys I like to talk to. And so we'll try to get Christian and see what happens and get his reaction. Ian, this is a pleasure. Thank you for being Ian. How about that?
Hey, thanks a lot, Ralph. I love doing this show with you.
I'm glad you do, and we'll do it same time, same bat station, as Alan Blumpkin would say. Adios. Adios, everybody. Keep on keeping on.